Good morning, everybody. This is the fifth and final part of our Haggai series. We are getting ready to see a big ending to a small book. Haggai is 2 chapters long, and it covers about 4 months of ministry. It involves one city, one building project, and a small group of returned exiles that are just trying to rebuild their lives after decades in Babylon. By any measure, it's really just a modest story. And then the book ends with God promising to shake the heavens and the earth, to overthrow kingdoms and destroy the military power of nations. That is a striking way to close a book about a construction project. But that's exactly the point. Haggai was never just about a building. It was always about something much larger. And this final passage kind of pulls back the curtain and it shows us what God has been doing all along. Let me switch over here for you all. Verse 20. For the second time that day, the 24th day of the month, the word of the Lord came to Haggai, saying, This uh, So this is the same day as the message in verses 10 through 19. And God speaks to Haggai twice on the same day. The first message was for the whole community, but this one is personal. It's directly uh, toward Zerubbabel. And I think that's worth noting. God addresses the community as a whole, but he also addresses individuals. The big story and the personal story, they're not separate in God's mind. So, who is Zerubbabel? He's been mentioned several times. So, let's kind of discuss who Zerubbabel is. He's the governor of Judah under Persian rule. He is not a king, he holds no throne. He leads a small, struggling community in a city that is mostly rubble. By the standards of the ancient world, he is a minor figure governing a minor province. But his family line is anything but minor. Zerubbabel is a descendant of David, and he is in that royal line. And that matters enormously for what God is about to say. Verses 21 and 22 tell Zerubbabel, governor of Judah, that I'm about to shake the heavens and the earth. I will overturn royal thrones and destroy the power of the kingdoms of the nations. I will overturn chariots and their riders, horses and their riders will fall, each by the sword of his brother. Now, this language has appeared before in Haggai. Back in verses 6 and 7 of chapter 2, God told the whole community that he would shake the heavens and the earth and the nations. Now he's repeating it directly to Zerubbabel. And the point is this: the great empires of the world, they're not permanent. Persia looks unshakable, and its armies are massive. Its reach is uh, enormous. But God says that even their strength will be overthrown. The military machinery the nations trust in, they're going to be destroyed. The language here kind of uh, echoes Exodus. God overthrew the chariots and riders of Egypt when he delivered Israel from slavery. That was the defining act of rescue in Israel's history. God is essentially saying to Zerubbabel, what I did at the Red Sea, I will do again. The power that holds the nations together, that will come apart. And when it does, I will act on behalf of my people just as I did before. That is comforting, I would imagine, but it's even more than that. It's a reminder that God has done this before and he will do it again. And then we get verse 23, which is, I absolutely love this. A lot of people kind of miss this, I think. But verse 23 says, "On that day declares the Lord of hosts, I will take you, my servant, Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, declares the Lord, and I will make you like my signet ring, for I have chosen you, declares the Lord of hosts." Now, a signet ring was the most personal and powerful symbol a king possessed. I want you to think about that. It carried his authority. It bore his seal. You would press it into a wax document, into wax that was on a document, and it essentially acted as a seal that showed this document uh, was basically like the king himself speaking. And you couldn't forge it, you couldn't transfer it. It was the mark of chosen authority. God says he will make Zerubbabel like that ring. But to understand the full weight of this, you actually have to go back to the prophet Jeremiah. Zerubbabel's ancestor, King Jehoiakim, had received a very different word from God. Jeremiah 22, verse 24, I'm not going to flip there, but I encourage you to look at it. But this is what it says: "As I live, declares the Lord, even if Coniah, the son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, were the signet ring on my right hand, yet I would tear you off." So God told Jehoiakim that even if he were a signet ring, he would pull him off and throw him away. The Davidic king would be removed. The line would be cut off. The royal authority would be stripped. And that was the curse. But Haggai is the reversal. What was torn off is being placed back on. What was rejected is being chosen again. The Davidic line that looked finished, it's now being restored. So 3 times in verse 23, God says, declares the Lord of hosts. And at the end, he gives the reason for everything. For I have chosen you. This is not about Zerubbabel's performance or his qualifications. It's not about his resume. God chooses him because God chooses him. Because this is covenant faithfulness. God made promises to David, and he intends to keep them. So, does this promise come true? This is where the text gets interesting, because Zerubbabel never becomes king. He finishes the temple, he does his work as governor, and then he just disappears from the historical record. There is no restored Davidic throne in his lifetime. Persia doesn't fall during his tenure. The shaking of the nations he was promised doesn't happen in any kind of visible way during his life. So, what do we do with this? The book of Haggai kind of ends with a question hanging in the air. God has made a massive promise to a man who, by all accounts, never sees it fulfilled. The story isn't finished. But remember our first lesson in Haggai, we talked about how Haggai was part of the 12. And that was the single scroll of the minor prophets. So Haggai is the 10th book. Zechariah comes next, and then Malachi. The story keeps moving. Zechariah picks up right where Haggai leaves off. He sees visions of a restored Jerusalem, a purified priesthood, and a coming king who will rule in peace. The promises don't die with Zerubbabel, they get carried forward. The 12 ends with Malachi pointing ahead, saying, "Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the great and awesome day of the Lord comes." So the scroll of the 12 ends, but it ends still looking forward, because someone is still coming. If you open Matthew 1 and read the genealogy of Jesus, you'll find Zerubbabel there, right in the line from David to Christ. The signet ring promise, it wasn't abandoned. It was carried forward through the line until it landed on Jesus, the Son of David, the one in whom every Davidic promise finds its answer. Jesus is the true signet ring. He bears the full authority of God. He is the chosen one. He is the king who sits on David's throne forever, and his kingdom is the one that cannot be shaken. The writer of Hebrews quotes Haggai directly in Hebrews 12, verses 26 through 28. It says, "At that time his voice shook the earth, but now he has promised, yet once more I will shake not only the earth, but also the heavens." This phrase, "yet once more," indicates the removal of things that are shaken. That is, things that have been made, in order that the things that cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, let us be grateful for receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, and thus let us offer to God acceptable worship with reverence and awe. The shaking God promised in Haggai is real, and it is coming. Everything that can be shaken will be. Empires, economies, systems, plans, all of it. But what God is building through his people will not fall. The returned exiles rebuilt a temple. It was modest. It didn't compare to Solomon's, but God said his glory would fill it, and the latter glory would be greater than the former. Jesus came and stood in that temple, and he said, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." Now we know he was talking about his body. He is the true temple, the place where God and humanity meet. And through his death and resurrection, he has made his people into a dwelling place for God's Spirit. The building the exiles worked so hard to finish was pointing forward to Jesus the whole time. Look at where we started this series. A small group of tired people in a half rebuilt city. They had been ignoring God's house and wondering why life felt empty. A prophet showed up and said, "Consider your ways." And they listened. Their obedience didn't produce immediate results. The harvest didn't come overnight. The temple took years to finish. The great shaking of the nations they were promised, it didn't even happen in their lifetimes. But their faithfulness was woven into a story that ended with Jesus. Their small, ordinary acts of obedience were part of the line that carried the Davidic promise all the way to the manger in Bethlehem. Your faithfulness works the same way. You may not see the full fruit of it in your lifetime. The seed may still be in the barn, but you are part of a kingdom that cannot be shaken. And God is weaving your obedience into something far larger than you can see right now. Haggai called the people to stop letting life crowd out God. He called them to put worship back at the center. He called them to consider their ways and to return. And when they did that, God said, "I am with you. From this day on, I will bless you. I will make you like a signet ring." And that same call, I believe, is still going out. The question Haggai asked his generation is the question I believe God is asking ours. What would it look like to stop running, to stop treating God as the thing you'll get to when life settles down, to put Him back at the center and trust that the life He's inviting you into is better than the one you've been managing on your own. The kingdoms of this world are shakeable. Yours is not. I think we should live like that. All right, that finishes up our Haggai series. I hope you all have enjoyed it. And if there's another book you want to see me kind of walk through, like we have Jonah and Haggai, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what that is. Just put it in the video or send me a message. Definitely very interested in doing more of these. So I hope it's been a blessing to you. I hope you've enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed studying it out and digging into it. So uh, thank you all again for joining me through this. I love you guys. God bless you.